welcome to That Was the News That Was, Dateline, and I should prepare this. I'm at 12th July. What an incredible week we've had, ladies and gentlemen. Last Thursday, general election on Friday, Labour won. I'm going to say hooray at first. Well, I did say hooray at first. I was very happy. But then, I will say this is my one gripe with the Labour Party. And let's be serious, ladies and gentlemen. Keir was in Washington for the NATO conference. And it's a tradition, I didn't realise it's to give presents. What did he give President Biden? Guess. You never know. And it horrified me. He gave him an Arsenal shirt. Now this makes me suspect that our Prime Minister is an Arsenal supporter. How can this be? After all, everybody in any sense would know there's only one football team in the world. That's the mighty Spurs. And a bit of history. Did you realise that Arsenal are migrants? They came from Woolwich Arsenal across the river. They came over. Spurs welcomed them because they're such a sporting team. And they gave him some luck. They never got it back. It's terrible, isn't it? But now on a serious note, quite a few things have happened. I just see something just flashed across my desk just before I was going to do this, and it was horrifying. Already, dissent in reform. Let's call it that. The dictator, and I will say he's a dictator, of reform, Nigel Farage, sacked his deputy, Habib. Now why, we don't know. Now we could say, and there are suspicions, in my mind anyway, is he had Habib to show that, yeah, he sets other people. But he sacked him. And what's happened is he's made Tice, who he demoted, and I'm going to say demoted to chair of the party, to his deputy now. Isn't that interesting? Look at this. A few weeks ago he said he wasn't going to stand, Farage. Not enough time to set up an election. And that was on Question Time he said that. And then all of a sudden, a few days' time he was. He was honorary president of the Reform Party. Honorary means you've got no powers, really. But what a lot of people don't know is Reform is not set up as a political party. It's actually set up as a business. He has actually said several times in interviews, oh, it's a start-up, it's a start-up. I'm going to be polite. There are words I would like to use, I won't. But he's talking out of his backside. Because Reform is the Brexit Party. A different name. How many times we've seen businesses take on different names to try to alleviate things. A little side story is, the last time I came off the streets, I went to live in a place in South London. The estate agent who managed the place had a name. Loads of problems. Actually, the second day I was there, I was out that time, somebody appeared and said, we're going to get you out. And Channel 4 were there, rogue landlords. And I would say, yes. I managed to do several things there which they kept on saying they couldn't do. They couldn't be bothered. Their main interest was the rent. A friend of mine, who unfortunately is no longer with us, very friendly with somebody down the road from us. I was informed that, and he worked it out. In 3 years, they got the money back for that place. And now it's sheer profit. But let's go back to Nigel Farage. So, if you may remember, whenever he was accused of anything, it was this a startup, or I don't know. Very interesting. Somebody spoke about some of his policies, which were in paper only. Well, they weren't even in paper. Say the £20,000, and he says, "No, I'm just a startup. How am I supposed to know?" Somebody said, and it found out that several of their candidates, and there's a new thing coming out about their candidates, he would say, "Look, it's just a startup." I don't think people working business people, in my experience, don't just say, I'll do something and know nothing about the firm. That would be like, I don't know, Thames Water saying there's no such thing as water. More on that later. But that's his excuse all the time. And I did say, I think last week, I suspect it's a dictatorship. After all, look at it. Tice was the leader. He was the leader of the party. All of a sudden he's demoted. Now, I assume, and I probably could look it up, is he's put money into it. I mean, both of them have. They're not poor. Although, you may remember, Farage was moaning that Coutts wouldn't allow him to keep his bank account. Is that a bit of ego? And that's what we come down to, egos now. Now, whatever Habib said to get him demoted was probably about ego, but maybe, as some people in business said, I don't need you anymore, really. You can go down. Now, he's still a member of parliament. He might defect. Don't know where to. We'll talk about the only other party he might go to, which is similar to Reform. But that's a big thing, isn't it? You know, you all of a sudden already, within a few days, I did see a bit of a speech with him, just after he got sworn in. And he was talking about the last speaker, Lindsay Anderson, how he wasn't up to cut. He has actually stated he's in there to shake things up. Now, if you listen to Monday's podcast, where we review the election, there's a couple of shocking details. I'll leave that for Monday. But this is news. Dissent already in a party. Now let's go on to more dissent in another party, the Conservatives. And let's talk about my favourite MP, as those regular listeners know. Ellen Braverman has once again been mouthing off. When she got voted in, she stood and apologised to the country. Her words were, "We have failed you." And then all of a sudden she's screaming for Farage to join the Conservatives. Now the recent thing is she's now saying we lost votes and they all went to Reform. Now Reform did dilute the voting stream. That is true. I won't deny that. But there's another reason for her using that statement. Is her main policy is about migrants. Forget the others. Let's look up some of the fantastic statements. Homelessness is a lifestyle choice. Well, as some of you know, I was homeless and I wouldn't say I chose it. Oh yeah, it was beautiful. Had my own centrally heated doorstep. Toilet to one side. Television. Bathroom. Oh, the lot. No, not a lifestyle choice. It's not an easy life living on the streets. But that's what she said. And her one dream, if you may remember, to quote Martin Luther King, was, I had a dream. I'm to see the planes fly off to Rwanda. Well, more on that later. But then the other day she once again showed her understanding, and she spoke about the pride flag. That was about how it was an atrocity. And in her statement says that she knows who is what. Men are men and women are women. Now, I will admit, I used to have great problems with homosexuals. I mean, I had an experience once that really coloured my view. But now I'm more open. I accept people, even Arsenal fans. But this is very primitive. From my observation, Suella Braverman works on one emotion only, hatred. She talks in a very hatred way. There's rarely any common sense. And she directs it. She wants you to hate these people. Wants you to hate these migrants. After all, these migrants get all our benefits. They have hotels. Yeah, I saw the Ali family. They went to Hilton the other day. Rubbish, I say. Total rubbish. The hotels they were put in, were not in good order. They did have a choice of, can I have a cheese sandwich, have a ham sandwich? No, they had what they were given. And as far as money goes, they were given very little. But she wants you to believe it. I mentioned this on Monday. What shocked me was Saturday night I watched the England game. Talked to my friend Neil after about football, because my favourite sport, and the game. And then I was going to go to Asda, but I realised by the time I got to Asda they would be closed. So I said go and get Chinese. And this Chinese place is open, is run by Indians. Don't ask me why. No idea. Nice people. And the guy behind the counter knows about the podcast, and we just mentioned. He said, I voted reform. Shocked me. And he said, well, the thought of everything you got is about the migrants. This is what Suella Braverman's been saying. This is what other people say. And unfortunately, this mentality is in a lot of people's makeup. They believe it. A guy who's actually a returning officer, who's of Caribbean origin. Now, all I know is he was dark skinned. I didn't know where he came from. He says he likes Nigel Farage. Yeah, but Farage is very personal. As a person you'd like. I don't think you like Suella Braverman. Her rhetoric is not good for the party. And something happened after her speech. They're in the shadow cabinet, and Braverman is not part of the shadow cabinet. Kemi Badenoch stated that we should all be careful and nothing should be released of the piece. And she spoke about Braverman, let's just say, 1 penny short. Following down the papers, it was released. How? Nobody shows now. 2 reasons to do this is, number 1, show the ravings of Braverman, but it also show the ravings of Badenoch. She's the favourite at the moment for the leadership, and we shall have to wait and see what happens there. But I pray, ladies and gentlemen, that Suella Braverman, she should go to reform. Except she's of dark skin, would Farage accept her? Because it is his party. today's incident with Habib would show that. Final bit of news. Now, we all got to pay for our bills. As people all know, long time I spoke about the ridiculous of the electricity company. Actually, electricity is supposed to be coming down. But they reckon in October it's going to go back up. Why doesn't Ofwat, the Ombudsman, have any power? It doesn't. It seems like they say, oh, we want a few quid. Okay, yeah, I'll just change the minimum rate. One of the biggest, there was something in Parliament, lobbyists. These are people who go around trying to convince MPs to follow what they want. Sometimes bills are not being put through because the MPs put so many questions on a different bill. There's no time. They run to a very strict timetable in Parliament. But now let's talk about, I mentioned it earlier on, Thames Water. Thames Water are in financial trouble. They have been allowed an increase, which is £100 less than they wanted. So whatever regulator, the water companies must be doing some work. But what I found disgusting is their chairman or CEO got £100,000 bonus. £100,000 bonus? Yes! For bringing the company into wreck and ruin. Oh, I'll take the job. I can do that quite easy. I'm not a businessman. I'm sure I can ruin a few companies. £100 bonus? Thank you! Why? This has been a constant thing. I think the banks as well, when they went, the CEOs were okay. They still got their money extra. And yet companies are losing money. Surely, wouldn't it be a good idea? Here's an idea. Just occurred to me. We find them. Okay. Your salary is $250,000. Right? We've lost $500,000. We'll pay you half your salary. Get some of that money back. How would the CEO feel? Don't you? I know I'd be pissed off. Yeah, I'll try to save your company. Oh yeah, I was off on holiday, but I'm trying to save your company. This is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. This is the world today of, I presume, big business. I'm not a businessman, as people know. I say that as I sound. But I think responsibility for what you're doing. And there is no responsibility. But probably what will happen is they'll do a Boris Johnson. I humbly apologise for losing all this money for you people, but I still want my bonus. A bonus for failure. Is that right? I say no. Let me know what you think. Now I must talk more about the podcast itself. Recently I've been approached by somebody to give advice and use the podcast as a platform about empty buildings in a part of London. I have no problem with the platform idea. The podcast is there to create awareness of these things. But then this same gentleman today said I should do a series of programs about HS2. I don't have the facilities to do this. I'm one person. Now recently I've actually brought somebody on to report on one issue of mental health. I've asked them, given them free rein to do it. Of course I'll check what's coming out, because it's my podcast. It's got to be a certain quality. I trust this gentleman immensely. Even though he's a West Ham supporter, he knows who he is. But I cannot, unfortunately, the truth is I cannot devote a series of programs to it. If I was doing a podcast, if the truth is, look at what I've covered so far. Drugs, homelessness, knife crime. Last week, the runaways. Don't they deserve the same sort of effort? Yes, they do. But how I see the podcast, and maybe some of you might have a viewpoint on this, I'd create awareness. Areas you wouldn't realise. I never knew about knife crime. No, I knew about it. And actually, funny enough, when I went there, I was thinking, I've had no friends of mine stabbed. And I remembered, 16-year-old, going back to a mate's place, a friend of mine got stabbed. Yeah, and I actually blocked it. We do block certain memories. But then hearing the agony, the stress that one woman stood up and she spoke about her boy. I'll call him Fred. She says, my Fred's been dead for 7 years. I'm still going through the trauma. Where's the help there? Last week when Nicola came on speaking about the runaways from the care system, he said, they're not listened to. They're kids, what do they know? So they've been abused. Where's the help? There are so many things I could concentrate the efforts of the podcast onto. But what I'm doing is opening the door for you to listen. Maybe one of you. I am, although, going to do something. It only occurred to me the other day, there was a gentleman who wrote about empty buildings. Now, empty buildings are my little thing. And as you know, I had Andrew McClay, we discussed it. A lot of problems getting empty buildings. Loads of them around. So what I decided to do is this. It's going to be discussed in the House of Commons. How are we going to overcome it? It's a simple solution. Actually, recently I saw in the paper, in Wigan, they're going to use some empty buildings to help people. Anthony Welsh is building his clean house. He informs me the whole road is full of empty houses. Now, how big? Even if it's 4 more, that's something. They're not used. Usually some rich bloke's got the title and is waiting until he can make a killing. Well, this is my suggestion, and tell me what you think about it, is that if there's an empty building in a place, leave it. Andrew actually said a year. I think it's generous. I'm saying 6 months. If it's not, if a planning action hasn't been put with a schedule, I'll come back to that. Then the council can put a compulsory purchase order and buy it. No red tape. Example can be I'll tell you the example. What happened was some guys squatted in 2018 in a building in Great Portland Street. It was an office building, hadn't been used. In the end, they were thrown out because there had been a demolition order issued on it. Evidence. I had no problem with that. The funny thing is, this demolition order was issued in 2016. Hold on a minute. It's 2018 they took over the building. What had been done? Actually, funny enough, the following year, the year of the election, I went to a hustings down there. A place where MPs talk about things. And as it was only round the corner, I thought, what's happened? I went there, and this time there was a sign up saying what they're going to do. So another year had gone by. That is not good enough. We are facing a housing crisis. Let's get things done. So, what I will be doing is there's a way of doing a petition. But I'm going to look at the wording very carefully. Unfortunately, as most people know, I'm busy with about 5 other things at once usually. I'm lucky that my mind is keyed into that thing, but the wording to this has got to be very carefully counted. So I'm going to take a week. Hopefully by next Friday, I'll have it ready. And then I will share it among the mailing list and other places. Now, I also mention a mailing list. If you would like to join my mailing list, and what you do is there's no charge. You will get notification of each podcast that comes out. And I usually put other things in the email. Things that I think my followers want to listen to or hear about the future or the past. A link to the podcast. You'll get the monthly newsletter, which I write. And you also get a chance to come on, which I welcome. I've got some great guests coming up at the moment. But it doesn't mean for all of you have a story. The only stories I won't allow are stories that I feel have no proof to them. And a good example would be a gentleman to come and talk about DWP surveillance. That was the time when they were talking about DWP looking at people's bank accounts. I thought, that's easy. I could do that. I know something about technology. But then he counted it with the 100,000 deaths. And I said to him, I do actually believe there are some deaths caused by the stress. But I said to him, I need documented proof. He never came back. So if you're going to make that sort of accusation of anybody, I will need proof. Because I'm the one presenting it. And I truly believe in truth and honesty. So, you can email me. My email is standupspeakoutuk@mail.com. And I wish you all a pleasant weekend. Bye.